Damaged antennas are a big no.
It's really deep.
Radio check 1 2, radio check 1 2, 1 2.
Morning, good afternoon, good evening, Radio Check team. Today we're going to talk about antennas. I'm going to go through this as quickly as I can so I don't take up a lot of your time. But I've been seeing a few things online throughout some posts about antennas not really being an important topic or being an important matter to radios. One thing I do want to express, and at least in my opinion and my experience, damaged antennas are a big no-no. Okay, so damaged antennas could really obstruct the ability for your radio to transmit more so than receive. Now, when you're transmitting, every radio has a specific antenna that it should come with. Now, most watching understand UHF, VHF, and so forth, and at least to some degree understand what needs to happen for the specific antenna you need to have. Okay. The reason why I bring this up is because I've been seeing a lot of posts and users, especially again when it comes to police departments or facilities, working for Amazon and a few other places using radios. I see a lot of mishandling or careless maintenance on the radios. So let's take a look at these two radios in front of us. I'll pull out my antennas just so I can go through these, but I want to look at these two radios right now. Both of these antennas look perfectly fine to be operating. Obviously, if you know, these are both UHF because of the size. We can get into what antennas look like later on if we really need to, but right now I just want to point out that these two they look perfectly fine to use. Now, if you're going to use a radio, obviously you should inspect your equipment. You should understand if there's any defects or issues with it prior to starting to use it. We'll go into the urban legend myth in a few minutes. But all right, so taking a look at these, now you can see which one is a no-no. Okay. So this antenna here obviously is bent. Okay. And this antenna was dropped, the radio was dropped in a bent antenna, and you would think, it's not a big deal, bend it back, it should be okay, right? Now, let's go deeper into what an antenna is supposed to do or looks like. So this is what the antenna looks like underneath that, the rubber casing that you only really think about or see. Let me see if I can focus on this. Right. So this is what an antenna looks like underneath this rubber. Right. So this is what the antenna looks like. This is what it looks like underneath. And this is what it looks like underneath all of that. Okay. So it's essentially a coil leading up to the top of the radio or the antenna. Okay. So this antenna has a specific job or way that it will transmit like any other radio. Okay. This antenna here is designed to a specific measurement with a specific tuning to the frequency that it's going to be using. So every radio has UHF, VHF, or it's multi-band. That antenna needs to be tuned to that frequency that you're going to be transmitting. Now, again, a lot of times you see, this is a UHF radio. You see someone stick on a VHF antenna. Now, it may seem fine because it transmits and it receives perfectly fine. But again, the way this antenna works, the way it's supposed to work, let's see if I can focus back in here. When you key up, let's see. Okay, when you key up the radio, okay, and you go beep, 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 the signal goes through all its mechanics, goes to the antenna. Let's see if I can focus it more. And it starts sending the signal up. Now, I wish I was a good animator and I knew how to do all that. animation stuff to kind of show you the cartoon of what it looks like. But what it does, sends this signal up to the antenna and out, right? And this is one of those antennas that it transmits all around, including up at some degree. Now, these do better, what would you call it, lateral, side to side versus up and down. For example, when you have your Wi-Fi router and you're setting that up, maybe I'll go pull that up. You don't necessarily need to have antennas sideways because, again, then that signal is going to be up and down this way, not this way. Your antenna doesn't transmit the way you want it to just because you move the antenna, right? So again, this has a specific job. This is what it looks like. Using a damaged antenna here could really damage its ability to send that signal out. Focus, come on. Not too close. There we are. Okay. So taking a look at that, I mean, again, it looks perfectly fine. But now when you take this off, let's take it off. You can see that it's damaged right there. Is that close enough? Okay. Now, a lot are going to think, well, again, not a big deal. Antenna is an antenna. It's still going to transmit and receive. When your antenna has a difficulty sending that signal up, like I said, the urban legend or the myth is that signal goes right back into your radio. And I just haven't really seen radios completely damaged because there's no antenna or damaged antenna. I've seen radios deplete their performance, perhaps because of that. And again, that's what this is going to lead to, is a damaged antenna is not going to allow that information, that signal to go all the way up and transmit, and it may send some of that power and signal back into your radio. So I've also seen, I went to a site where someone started using the radio literally like this without an antenna. And I stopped and looked and I thought, oh my God, that's just poor radio etiquette, poor radio maintenance and etiquette. And I asked the lady politely and I said, oh, whose radio is that? She goes, oh, it's mine. It's my radio. And I said, it's okay. Just want to let you know, without that antenna on top, you could potentially damage your radio. I know Not a Rubicon put out a video some time ago about, can you damage or burn your radio without an antenna? And no, you're not going to, catch it on fire because you're keying up without the antenna. But again, you're depleting the performance and the ability for your radio to perform as it needs to, okay? So this radio here, that is essentially all you're leaving as an antenna, right? If you decide to put a I think this is my UHF stubby. If you were to put a UHF stubby, okay, now you got to consider the fact that your radio has now decreased its ability to send the same signal it would with this one. It will still send the signal the same way, because again, this antenna was cut to its size and tuned to the frequency that you're going to be performing on, transmitting on. This is its original antenna. This is obviously your luxury stubby antenna. 800 megahertz has similar situation where I think an 800 is, I'm trying to think, a longer length, and then the 800 stubby is a shorter length. And again, you can always tell that the size. I think this is VHF. I could be wrong. Let's see. VHF and 800 are almost the same size. And again, you can always tell by its length on the radio. But anyways, just going back to this, you decide to downgrade to an antenna that is obviously more convenient for you because it's not so long or it's low profile. Again, you're not allowing that radio to perform the same way it would with a traditional issued antenna. Okay. Another thing you might want to keep in mind is anytime you buy these antennas from aftermarket locations, eBay or even Amazon, sometimes they do come from China. You don't really know specifically how well they are tuned to your radio, and again, that can deplete your performance. The reason why I say this is because I actually bought this one for my XPR. Let me find. Yeah, so this was the original. Okay, as you can see, this is the original Motorola UHF. Okay, this is for the XPR, and I bought another one in aftermarket from Amazon because both of my XPRs I wanted to have stubbies on them because I was just transmitting in a really short distance. So, again, be sure you understand that when you do buy these antennas, it is compatible. There are some that turn out to be like this. This is one that may have some issues with your radio. These are more for like the CP200 or the SP50s. I think even the MT2000, the Sabre, Motorola Sabre uses these, and then I think XTS is with the little pin at the bottom. So just make sure you pay attention to your radio because again, at the very bottom, it will show, or not the bottom, at the receiving area of the antenna, it will show you if there is a pin needed in there or not. All right, let me grab an SP50, see if we can see the difference. Okay, SP50, yeah, no, see that's a older antenna. Still same thing, it's coiled up and it goes up, and that's what typically happens. Now, here is a difference with these two radios. Actually, let me flip them around. One has the, come on, focus. Oh, maybe I need to zoom in first. See how this one doesn't really have that pin at the bottom, and then this one does. That's going to tell you what type of antenna your radio is going to need. So be very careful forcing one of these down at the bottom to this radio because it's really going to give you a problem. Okay. So anyways, let me go back to the original purpose of the video. It's just really to understand, to maintain your antennas, even cosmetics, because that's going to start telling you if that antenna needs to be replaced or at least inspected to make sure your radio is going to perform to its highest standard. Now, if you look at this antenna here, this one starts to come off, but there is no issues because antenna is pretty well intact. This does not have an issue with it. This can, start cracking or look a little older. That's okay as long as it's not exposed like this one. This one could potentially have an issue, but again, it's not really so much of what's exposed. If you do come in contact with this and another cable wire, it could potentially deplete the performance. A lot of times I do see speaker mics hitting the antenna. Let's put this back on here. So sometimes you'll have speaker mics on these radios, and what I see sometimes is people they cross the speaker mic onto the antenna somehow, and they're keying up and down, and that could also affect the ability of your antenna to perform properly. Because again, when you're keying up with this, you are producing electricity through this, and if it's touching this antenna, it's going to deplete the energy or the power from this antenna. This is why if you ever read a radio, two-way radio manual, a script or booklet, whatever you want to call it, a lot of times, and if not all of them, say when you transmit, hold the radio away from you and key up. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to use a radio. I'll I'll hold that for another video. But a lot of times, again, just bugs me so much when people think radios can be used in all unique, different, cool ways. Now, again, not to bash on Amazon so much, but Amazon, they require their employees to use vests, high reflective or high visibility vests, and they have the clips on the sides of the vest where you can clip your radios. And I see a lot of people clipping their radios, but you know what they do? They clip the radios upside down. They clip the radios upside down. So now this is towards their mid stomach or lower stomach. And again, you're not understanding that if your antenna is lower than the top of your radio has to now transmit from the bottom and reach its destination, whether it's radio to radio or a repeater. Again, proper etiquette is that this antenna is your important tool, your important asset to the radio. And if you're going to sit here and talk like this, if you're going to sit here and talk like this, you're not giving the radio's best opportunity to perform as it needs to. But okay, enough of that. So let's just go back to antennas. Just again, understanding that every antenna is specifically tuned to its frequency, and there's certain ways you can actually check. There's other ways. Most of these, let me see if I can find one. If you get a good radio or a good antenna, there are some that tell you the frequency that is tuned to or the band. Let me see. So this one isn't, but let's see. I know on the side of this one it is. So right here, it tells you, come on, focus, VHF, UHF, okay? Now, it doesn't mean the entire band of VHF, UHF. Usually for UHF, it's 1 or 440. VHF is 144, I believe. Let's see if I can find another one. There's one antenna I saw that actually tells you at the bottom. Here it is. Right here, it tells you it's FM 136, 174, 400, 520 megahertz. So this is actually a very well identified antenna. It doesn't mean it's going to be perfectly well tuned, but these do tend to do very well, if not better than these customized antennas. The SWR might be off the charts, and that's also something that you may want to consider is when you are looking or shopping for these antennas. It really does matter how well these are tuned, because too much or too little is going to throw these off the chart, and either it's not going to give its full ability for power. I just came across a YouTube video that said this antenna gave my radio more power. Well, maybe yes and no, because if your radio is graded to 1 watt or 4 watt or 10 watts or 20 watts, whichever it is, your radio is not performing to that highest wattage. Again, it depends on the radio, the battery, the voltage, the antenna, the tuning. Now, when all of that is in line and everything is perfectly checked off, you will get the most max power out of your radio, and that's great. Because again, depends on the placement of your antenna, depends on the tune of your antenna, the battery that you have, or the source, that if it's grounded properly. I know a lot of people slap antennas on the roof and they call it a day, and that also really affects and determines how much more you're going to get out there. I did see, I have to find his Instagram, he actually had a CB radio and cut that CB radio down, and was able to get from Arizona to, I don't know what it was, New Mexico or another state across on 50 watts. And I said, that's incredible, again, because it's managing your antenna to what it specifically needs to be. Too long and you're wasting power. Too short and it's not enough to get the power out. So it just, so again, just pay attention to the antennas. I would say just try to, learn as much as you can. There's a lot of YouTube videos out there. And again, I wish I was a good animator so I could show you how these, work and how it receives. But be very careful on the antenna that you're choosing. Don't just stick any antenna onto your radio. Just spend some time and try to understand, which antenna can fit on what radio. I've seen a lot of people sticking on even some of these antennas on here, and I thought to myself, well, I mean, that looks cool and all. Specifically is not designed for that. I just would be very, very careful using these. If you have a meter to read your SWR and the wattage going in and out, perfectly fine. That's cool by all means. But be very careful because, again, at the end of the day, it could deplete the performance of your radio. I'm not saying it's going to burn it up and catch it on fire, but don't complain. I guess don't complain if your radio's not, receiving or transmitting as far as you think it would or should or needs to go. Proper antenna placement, maintenance of the antenna, where you put it on your body, that's all really going to make a difference. I am very big, for years and years, they holstered their radios on the side of their Sam Browns, and the speaker mic ran up over their shoulder, and that's how police talked, or security teams, or anyone that uses the PTT or the speaker mics. You clip it to your belt, and then you're talking off of the speaker mic, and at some point they realized, and I'm sure they did a long time ago, they realized that the speaker mic with the antennas on the top do way better than the antenna on here. And for example, let me get the antenna. Hold on. Let me get the speaker mic. All right, team. I am back. Let me show you a few speaker mics that I came across that I think would be really beneficial to performance. Here's one of them that I purchased that actually gives you the ability to put the speaker mic on the shoulder. Plus, it also has an antenna that you can put on top of here. Oh, there's a gap there. You might have to look at that. So what it does is this goes onto your epaulet or your shoulder strap. Some polo shirts have the thing in the middle where you can just put that in there. Perfectly fine. That still might be in your way if you put this on your chest. It's better if you put this on your shoulder. But what this does is actually has you put this right onto the antenna. Instead of putting an antenna on here, it actually just goes right on top of here, take the antenna off, and it becomes your speaker mic and your antenna, which is pretty cool. That's a good way to do that. I've also seen, I don't know if this one has it. So for example, let's see, where's my other antenna? I lost the other one. Okay, so here's another same thing. You put the antenna here, preferably 8-stubby, not so much the traditional. If you wanted to, that's perfectly fine. It still works. If not, it'll work better. But what this does here, this is called an antenna tap here. And what you can do is you buy it's either the antenna or the antenna tap adapter. So it's you screw it onto here. It almost looks like a little piece like this. And this, when you clip it on, this part here, hopefully you can still see what I'm trying to do. This piece here actually clicks on and it taps into the antenna right there. So you can have this antenna and use antenna right on your speaker mic. And again, this will really increase your ability to transmit and receive at the same time. So these are actually pretty awesome, and this is why I purchased this one, because it does have the antenna and antenna tap that you can use. So again, anyways, let's see, if there's anything else I want to cover. Really, it's just all I really want to cover is just to give you that advisory and warning not to transmit without your antenna. And if you do, find or customize your antenna, just make sure that it's the right antenna for your radio. Again, these Valve things, they do come with a lot of options and abilities to change antennas. And again, just be very mindful and be very careful. There's another antenna that I had that was really terrible in receiving and transmitting. It was almost similar to this, but it was, you can find all sorts of these type of brands and knockoff brands on Amazon. And again, it may look cool on your radio. It may be a little bit more discreet. And again, if you are going to use these in a very small area, that's perfectly fine. Again, they're just not going to do very well when it comes to a high rise or a longer distance. Again, the last video I explained is that your antenna will need to have the ability to either reach that other radio or reach that repeater, and then that repeater will do the rest of the work for you if that is available. If not, you're solely relying on your radio's performance, your radio's battery wattage, and the antenna. These are something we've been using lately around the house. I've been biking every afternoon, and we use these around the house so we don't have to yell. And I think my screen is very, hold on, you can see the glare going on. There we go. So we've been using these around the house. They work pretty great. You can see here it actually says 2 watts, right? Or is that less than 2 watts? It can be greater than 2 watts. So it's less than 2 watts or 2 watts and less. And these actually been doing very well, and I'm actually very impressed with these. I was thinking these are only going to work around the house. I think there is let me grab the other radio. All right, we were using these for a while. CLP1040. And I inherited these from a store that went out of business, and they didn't really care to take these with them. But these are originally designed, I guess, more for retail. You put this on your belt clip, and you key up right here, and you listen with this. And this, I gotta tell you, can barely make it around the house without being very fuzzy. And I expected more out of these, but they just did not perform as well as these. And you would think to yourself, well, I mean, where's antenna? You're talking about antennas, right? Well, the antennas are built into these. So it's not like they left out an antenna. They just designed this with antenna inside the radio. And again, I didn't think this was going to go very far. To find out, these actually worked just under, I think just under half a mile. And that's still pretty good for this tiny little radio that, it's got, I don't know, 16 channels. And I don't care so much about the features, just the talk and listening. But I was biking around, and she was actually able to talk to me on this. If you watch my other video, I programmed my 1500 to talk to this radio. And so she walks around the house with this while I'm biking, and up biking around the neighborhood, and I was able to hear her pretty clear certain days. There are some days I can't hear her. It's just a lot of interference. The CTCSS and DCS, the squelch control is not that great on this than it is on this. So sometimes you do hear interference on this because it doesn't mute and unmute right away. But anyways, I'll be doing a review on these. These are actually pretty cool. So, all right, team, that's all I really have. I did want to bring this one out to show you, just again, these antennas do get crusty and rusty at some point, and they do snap, and that's what happened here. Let me see what happened. Yeah, that's what it was here. So this is how I bought the one of the speaker mics at some point, and this is again, I don't know what band this is because it doesn't say what it's tuned to, but that's what this one originally came from. It's about the same size, so give or take, it could be a UHF or 800 megahertz. You just never really know. But yeah, that's it did snap off. It got really old. It did fall, and that's what ended up happening. Is it just broke off. That's what happens. and I wouldn't dare this put it back on and use it this way. Number one, it looks terrible. Number two, who knows, how well this was doing before replacing it or it coming off. So, all right, folks, that's all I have. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to reach out. Let me know your opinions. And again, this is just more of my information to you, my education to you. Take it or leave it. Let me know what you have learned with antennas, and if you think using broken, busted, rusted antennas is still okay to use on the radio, by all means, let me know your experience. If not, again, I hope this helps you understand how to maximize the performance of your radio. Let me see. Let's do this one. Let's go 11 because I think she's on. She's on that one right now.
13.
Check, check. All right, team, radio check, over now. Thanks again. See you on the next video.